Hello, everyone, and welcome back for another edition of our NACE Calgary webinar series. I'm your host, Brett Johnson, Program Chair for NACE Calgary. So today marks the end of this extreme cold week that we've been experiencing here in Alberta. There's actually the official extreme cold warning has actually been removed. So as you move into this long weekend here, we can expect nice balmy temperatures of almost minus 20. Well, maybe at least after this weekend, things will move to a little bit more of seasonal temperatures. So today's webinar features Mark Woynarowich from Senazon. Mark has over 20 years of experience in the energy industry in both operational and management roles. His experience includes working for one of the largest producers in Canada, CNRL, as well as a boutique asset integrity firm. He is currently with Senazon Development, Operation, and Asset Management Tools. Mark, we are very grateful to have you join us today.
Thanks, Brett. Happy to join everybody as well. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. So what are you going to talk to us about today, Mark?
Actually, what I've been most enjoying in my life and my career in the past while is using technology to help me advance operational excellence and how I've kind of come to where I am with my experience and just touching on some of the trends that are happening, some things that are pointing us in the right direction, and then almost looking towards the future of what we're going to start to see as the pace of technology and the tools around us are evolving at faster than ever speeds so that we can utilize them to improve our operations and our effectiveness.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. Before we jump into it, I'd like to start by highlighting our annual sponsors. Their continued contributions allow us to be able to provide this webinar series to our membership at no charge. So for today, I'd like to highlight one of our gold sponsors, Brenntag. So Brenntag is a global market leader for chemical and ingredient distribution. They have been servicing the Canadian oil industry for over 65 years with gas processing and specialty production chemicals. They have a strong team of chemists who provide comprehensive lab and analytical services right here in Calgary. They also help operators solve internal pipeline corrosion issues with their risk assessment modeling, which include pipeline connectivity and flow apportionment using GIS data to optimize corrosion inhibition programs. And of course, all our other annual sponsors are a huge reason why we can do what we do. Our sponsors help fund several initiatives that NACE Calgary takes on to promote the knowledge of corrosion, sustainability, and asset integrity to our industry and to the next generation of engineers. So to each one of our sponsors, we thank you for your continued support. So to see the recording from this webinar and all our other past webinars that we've had, be sure to check out our website at nacecalgary.ca, and there you'll find the YouTube channel link. So Mark will be giving his presentation live. So be sure to stick around after the presentation and we'll move into a Q&A session. Please submit any questions you have to Mark in your Zoom client by clicking the Q&A buttons on your screen. If you're joining us from YouTube Live, please enter your questions into the comment field there and I'll be sure to ask them as well. So with all that, Mark, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Brett. I appreciate the introduction, and I'd just like to get my screen up here for my presentation. And I'd like to say thank you to everybody for joining us. I really look forward to presenting this to you. And I actually am more excited about the questions because what I've found is, like my title says, technology as a tool, Kaizen, which I'm sure might be a new phrase to some of you, but I will be touching on it throughout my presentation and hopefully, showing you the power that it has as well as what we can do. And my goal isn't to tell you there's one way. It's never that, but it's always to kind of open up your perception and provide you with more information to make an informed decision. As you know, coming from where I come from and what I do, technology has become a big part of my life these days. And just a caveat here, by no means am I a developer, by no means can I program, but being around this environment and these people and this industry have broadened my perception to the possibilities. And it's amazing. I tell people that coding in that language is like a new language, and I'm only just learning the alphabet. I haven't even learned to put words together, the phrases, but with that, I'm still gaining a strong understanding that within one language, there's many types or forms or lingos within it that can help build. So today I'm going to do a quick introduction just to myself so you can understand where I come from. I want to talk about digital technology trends at the forefront because this is the most exciting part to me. Then I'm going to touch a bit on how technology is boosting efficiency. Numbers, stats, all of that, but also what it's doing for us is the bigger thing. What are the outcomes? And that's what I really enjoy is, yes, technology is helping. What actions are it creating? What is it doing? And then what the future of a digital oil field looks like. And honestly, I don't know. But what I'm seeing is connection. And I'm going to show you guys a little bit more of how this is going to fall into place. We've always looked for that silver bullet, right from when I started operating through to working at the producing companies to engineering firms. Everybody's looking for that one solution that does all. But what we're finding is there's a many solutions that do many things, and we just have to harness the power of bringing it all together, which until the internet, phones, mobile devices wasn't possible, but we're learning it is. So just to go into things a little bit, everybody, I'm Mark Woynarowich. I grew up in the small town of Drayton Valley, which is quite a bit larger than it is now. And my dad was a regulator for 35 years. And every single friend I had growing up, either their parents worked in the industry or they worked in the small town that supported the industry. It felt like it was the heart of oil and gas back when I was growing up, which was great. And the funny thing is you look at the town, and I just threw up this image. I had pump jacks in the middle of my schoolyards. They were there. Nobody paid attention to them because they were so well maintained, managed, and everybody understood it because it was part of everyone's lifestyle. We had a joke growing up that, you graduated to the next school when you got a larger pump jack in the playground. So it wasn't in the playground. It was always off in the distance, but they definitely were there. So that's always fun. I love the industry. I love what we're doing, but even more, I love where we're going. I'm a farm kid by heart, grew up in the bush. I love the environmental, social governance that we're pushing forward with because I believe we do an amazing job, and we all are participating to make sure that that's transparent. And that's what I'm finding is technology is good for, is transparency. I got to show you guys where I grew up, and most of you are probably like, oh, I've heard of Drayton Valley, which is very common. So technology is the evolution. Evolution is evolution, but this one stuck with me for about the last 5 years. A friend passed this along to me when he was having some struggling times, and he's like, I just have to learn to adapt more. It's no different for our industry. It's not the strongest or the smartest. It's whoever can adapt to the ever-changing circumstances that we're in. And we all know that we can adapt. How quickly or how efficiently we do that varies with the people, the processes. But the faster we're doing it, and in these day and times, the technology is supporting that multiplier. It's no longer a doubling, it's a 10 times, 100 times quickness because of what we're building, and more so the technology that's available. The technology is quickly growing. Would you have thought that 5 years ago, Uber Eats and getting coffee delivered to your house within 20 minutes would be a better, more feasible option than driving to the store? Probably not. One of the things that I want to talk about, and that I'll highlight throughout all of this in my discussion, is the value of technology. And there's, this key phrase that we've been using at Senazon for the past year that I've coined to help us out is the digitization, the visualization, but more so the association of information. If you don't have it digitized, get it digitized and get it into a fashion where it can be multiplied, used in other places. Visualization. Myself, I'm a very visual person. Graphs, pictures, and what I found out is a map and layering is amazing for supporting my ability to make decisions quicker, be more informed, and advance processes. And then the neat one to everybody that I think is coming to the forefront is the association of information. This is challenging. It's probably the hardest part, and everybody goes, oh yeah, document management. Yes, that's a beast, but it's not just document management. It's the systems and the tools we use and how we collect, how we organize, where we save, and then how we access it. That is the key part for the association. We have tons of information and we've done an amazing job, and we're fortunate to that. But the fact that it's in so many various places and tools and folders and aspects is very challenging. And that's probably one of the biggest portions that our industry has to get over is no matter what we digitize, we have to make it so it's available in a fashion where it can be used other places where it has a higher value or a different group can use it for a different purpose. So I know everybody saw in my title of my presentation, Kaizen. very similar to continuous improvement. Actually, it is continuous improvement in a different fashion. But one key part of this that I wanted to touch on, and of course it's a Japanese phrase, and it was coined through Toyota and their advancements in what they do. Ford uses it. Many other industries use it nowadays, but it involves all employees. So everybody within the organization has to move forward harmoniously. And it's continuous improvement that helps that. But the last 2 to 3 words here are gradual and methodical processes. Small steps for big wins. So I love it. It's an easy word to use. Kaizen, change, good. It's awesome. So just so you guys know, that's a little bit about what this is and why technology supports this continuous improvement facet of what we're doing. To give you a little bit of understanding of how that works, it has the very similar workflow, like you had seen before. It's the plan, do, check, act, and very similar here. This is about taking those small pieces and organizing them, getting them into the perfect place, getting rid of the clutter. But as you saw in my agenda, the first step is identifying the problem. This works with identifying the problem, working through the process, and then shining it, polishing it, standardizing it, and then sustaining it, making it repetitive, and then finding that next issue and solving that. So small incremental steps, that focus, and that's where technology works amazing. If you can focus on that one problem and advance it forward, you're going to have big wins, because that workflow that you just built can be automated. And that's what technology is great for, is automating workflows. Because once you do that, then you're storing the information. So as I go into things and kind of talk about why technology is a tool, is yes, it will replace jobs or tasks. It will never replace people as a whole, because it will turn you into a multiplier. And how I look at that is, yes, we will be able to automate a lot of those jobs, but are these tasks that people really need to be doing, whether it's a tool, a technology, or a device? And if it is or isn't, how is, by replacing that, making the whole process more purposeful? Can that person be used for a bigger mean? Because our brains and our abilities can grow much quicker. We actually have to teach machines and computers how to do this, and then they can do it. We have to build them. So without us, they're a little bit one-handed to say. So we need to do more with less people, as you see. Retirement, for one in, there's two out. And even the technologies, there's more technologies, but we don't have the people that with the knowledge to spread and utilize its full potential. And then less time. We all know there's less time, but using time wisely actually creates that less time more valuable. And then more with more. Everybody looks at me, how can you do more with more? Well, I have to make more decisions because I'm getting more information. I have to make those decisions faster. And I'm being asked to make more decisions. That is super challenging. And that's where technology, be it devices or platforms or tools, even systems, they're a tool to help you do more with it. And what I've learned is, coming through where I was operating, working for CNRL, building pipelines and facilities, they gave us some amazing tools, which made my job easier. Even just doing licensing for applications for pipelines into the digital system and using shapefiles. I'm very happy I don't have to pull a ruler out of my desk and draw it onto a map and then wonder why when it shows up somewhere else that it's wrong, because not every day is the same. This is amazing how we're automatically integrating technology. So, doing more with less is a big thing, but also doing more with more really helps these organizations become more efficient. And I just wanted to share a lot of this with you guys, because I feel we know technology and the advancements in this technology are coming, but there's so much, it's hard. It's like trying to pick the right phone these days. By educating yourself, and like the Kaizen is, it's all employees, an organizational decision to move forward unanimously together. That's a big part. So digital technology trends. I am super excited about this. Some of the things I'm going to talk about here we're already into, but what I want to touch on is how they're going to impact us before I get into a bit more of the future of what we're going to see and how things are going. But artificial intelligence, it's problem solving, it's learning. We have to teach it to learn. It will do it faster, quicker, and take different paths to find a result. So you still have to know the answer you want to get, and you can teach a machine, but it will be able to work quicker than we can, repeat it, and it doesn't fall asleep, it doesn't eat, doesn't need drink, it doesn't go to the bathroom. And the computing power is increasing. So with quantum physics, you are going to see the machines being able to run through very complex things way quicker than ever. As you know, an Excel sheet can only hold 1 million columns. Some of the information that we're seeing now far surpass that. So that's where there's a need for technology, but finding it is a very high need. So, you know, yes, artificial intelligence is automation and artificial intelligence, but it still has to be taught. And that's where I've learned that the machine learning, it's a process of knowing the process you have and teaching the computer to automate it so it can repeat it, and then using that information. This works hand in hand with big data. Everybody goes, oh, big data, artificial intelligence. They have to go hand in hand. And one of the biggest things people don't realize is it's really hard to throw everything into a system and get an answer out. You can do data mining and look into this big information and pick out similarities, but if it's all not structured and placed within a system, or the process of how it is brought in isn't compartmentalizing it into workflows or tables within that have, you know, very strict rules and guidelines around it, it's kind of useless. You know, you can mine and do a lot of information just out of what you're mining for, but to truly turn a system or tool into an intelligent piece, you need that ability to understand the workflow. And as you see, it's just an increase in volume, velocity, and variety of data. And these two work hand in hand. You know, they both work well together. So as we're getting more data, whether it be SCADA information or pressures, temperatures, you know, seismic information, being able to process it quicker is where we take our formulas and what we use. And in the oil and gas, and I love pipelines, and it's kind of become my passion. There is so much that goes on in a pipeline along its routing that being able to compute the change in pressures and temperatures and flow algorithms, not just on one line because you have a start, but every inch or 2 inches, or for every joint, or taking in the topography is a huge thing. Just think of the amount of information you're pulling together as you go through this. So the next couple trends, those were the first two. The next couple that you're going to start to see is you know, around IoT, and then also 3D virtual modeling and drones. These two kind of go hand in hand together as well. So they're the devices that are pulling it in and connecting it. The big data is aggregating it, and then we're teaching systems to learn and grow and repeat. You know, once they get it, they repeat it. So this kind of brings everything together. And I'm really excited about IoT. We already have a ton of devices that are measuring and tied electronically to systems and just bringing in information. It's been amazing to see what companies can do. I know at Senazon, we're pulling in information from over 100 different types of data sources, and I'll touch on data sources in a bit, but it just enables so much more. And it's the people creating these amazing tools that are allowing us as an industry to further understand the ever-changing environment in a unique place, or how that unique place attributes to a different asset. So, you know, 3D virtual modeling is going to be the big trend. And there's images of what you see up here. And I will touch on one key point here. 3D virtual modeling is becoming coined as a phrase of a digital twin. And digital twins are extremely valuable in then associating that digitized information that you have collected somewhere so that you can visualize it. So you still have it being stored somewhere in cells, formats, templates, but then you're able to associate it and then visualize it in whatever form. And you're going to learn a lot that the 3D virtual modeling, I think we're just on the cusp of getting into augmented and virtual reality. There's a lot of tools out there. It's going to become more of a need or a desire that when you're building a facility, you're literally walking through it. To when it's built, you can do both, be in the live environment and the virtual environment, seeing the exact same thing. It'll be no different. And that's really where the technology is going. But all of these things work together in harmony. And we all have to learn a lot. And I am by no means an expert in this, but by being on the technology realm and in the software development side that Senazon has been working in, I've really learned how I've done things in the past and learned how to become more efficient. You learn from yourself, but you also have to think about how you'll do things in the future and what technology can advance you. So just do a little time check for myself here. So one of the things that we all see technology doing, and what I'm most proud about is the pyramid. You know, we're bringing information together, we're communicating it faster and more effectively. And then what you see is the third layer of the integration layer. So the integration layer and the application layer just bring all of the data that's in different places or all of the devices together. We've done a great job collecting them. There's amazing tools out there, but as an organization and in the realm of Kaizen, you really have to think about how do I get the most out of what I need to do, and think about what is the problem I'm trying to solve. Because if you can't go, what is the problem I'm trying to solve and where are all these pieces, it's really hard to try and put them together because the accuracy, the consistency, and the speed just won't be there to allow you to make those faster, more informed decisions with high levels of confidence. But that's what we're using this technology for. The biggest layers are at the top of this. You know, there's volume. And if you think of this pyramid in volume, there's lots of instrumentation layers, equipment. There's tons out there. And then as you get further and further up this pyramid, the volume of that has to get smaller. You know, yes, we need power and communication layer of bringing this information together and tying systems. The integration layer has to allow all of these different tools to bring it into one system, and then an application layer. I love that the top of this pyramid is the collaboration layer. To me personally, that is a huge thing. I love to collaborate. I love to have that win-win-win, and that win-win-win doesn't even have to mean I'm participating, but I might be able to enable something else. That is the collaboration layer, where if we're helping each other to do more, we're all winning. And in the bigger picture, everybody is moving forward. And that's why with Kaizen, it's all employees, because you might change one process, but it might cause an issue somewhere else. Or your improvement might provide value to someone else in their workflow. So harmonizing the organization is huge. Yes, getting to one tool or one application is a big decision, but I don't think we're at the point where there is a silver bullet. But if we think about how to bring all of this together, we definitely will be able to make stronger decisions faster. And I guarantee you there will be technology out there that's coming that we aren't aware of that will allow us to integrate things super easily and create that platform. And I think it's already starting to get created throughout many companies, and where it ends up will be driven by our industry and how they need to best utilize it. And that's where collaboration, it's working together. How will this solve your problem, and how can it improve what you're doing? So industry results, I know we all kind of look out the window and get overwhelmed at things, or looking at your computer, there's always so much. Breaking it down into small pieces. And that's where our technology is allowing us to see what we're doing, to create that transparency. And for me, being an operator, writing things down, and at the end of the day, jumping on a computer to type in my numbers and send emails was hard. I loved it when I got that technology in my hand where I could send an email from my phone or a laptop in my truck where I could put the numbers in as soon as I was done. I felt more accomplished. It also allowed me to convey messages when it needed to be done to ensure that things were getting looked after. And even to this day, we're finding that automatic notifications, control rooms, all of this has gotten to the point where it's instantaneous. But to those people, it's great. How can that information be used elsewhere in other business decisions? And whether it's data-driven decisions or value creation in agile operations, those are all things we have to think of how we can improve what we're doing. And just like the process of Kaizen, one of the things that we're noticing just through Senazon and what I'm taking back to industry and looking at some of the statistics is just technology is helping us solve problems or answer our questions quicker because we're not searching for information. It's in a centralized place where we can go access it. That's one of the greatest things to me is I never liked having to look for information, to grab it, to put it into another place for use so that I could use it and other people could. I always wondered why we couldn't automate it. And it is, I find it amazing that you can pull pressures, temperatures, volumetrics from any one meter and have it, post or cascade down a line and volumetrically calculate. Having that at the tip of your finger and not needing to go into a separate group's workflow or an accounting system is huge. It's that multi-purpose need. 50% reduction in unplanned maintenance. This is a huge thing because what we're finding is that there's less surprises. We're starting to learn more, we're gathering more, and as we better organize it, this will become a new norm, and that new norm will then have to reset, and we'll have to go, okay, we're starting over. Now what is that? Because we can never get to 100%. There will always be some variable, and that's the new problem that we try to solve. And hopefully we'll have a lot of the answers available that we'll put together the pieces for. And then increase in operational speed. That's what it's all about. If those answers are there, you can make a decision quicker, you can ensure those unplanned maintenance costs aren't there, you're already moving forward. So I just wanted to share that with everybody before I get into some of the more technical aspects of what I'm seeing and the future and the digital twin. And of course, I'm using some of my experience and the operations companies that I work with and the industries that I talk to, but it's all small gains that add up. And that's what Kaizen is. You will notice that, you know, the cream of the crop floats to the top, and apologies for my farming terminology, but it does. The best float up, and they're there, and it can change, and it will change quicker and quicker and quicker. But the best part is it's up to us to decide it and how we utilize it. So the future of a digital oil field, and I use this because it's very simple for me to understand, and I hope to portray that, you know, tying systems together is quite easy. And what we've learned at Senazon is it's very easy to display how it can be done. Key things are there's a lot of information, a lot of public, a lot of private that is confidential, and then a lot of information that's unknown. What we're always trying to identify is the unknown. But the bigger challenge is what is valuable information. And this realistically is just showing that information can be easily tied together if it's put into sources that it can be consumed, or if those sources are in a structure where they can be imported into a system through CSVs. So automation is huge. Less people touching things, the better. But we still know that we collect a lot of information in other forms, making it easy so that you can do both. Not just one way, both ways, many ways, really increases our ability to take that step forward in improving. And what I see, not just with, you know, companies, technologies, but the organizations, is we're thinking about this holistic view and putting the pieces together so information can talk. But as you can see, a lot of these arrows go both ways. And that's what I wanted to talk about is whether it's coming from a public data source or a proprietary data source or a very secret or source data, that information has value. It can be used in other systems to provide insight. It also could be the source of truth for these organizations. Some companies have their own. Some companies reference public data and others refer to private information, and it's all referred to as source. But understanding the data, the rules and restrictions that are around it are something that everybody has to be aware of, because not everything can be used, not everything can be shared, but for the companies who are utilizing it in their purpose, there is a value that you need to understand. So one of the big things I always talk about is know where your data is coming from, know where those agreements are, and know how the application supports your organization. As you can see, there's all types of operational information being pulled in. It all gets put into one database, but it all has to be put out back somewhere when it has a different value or they want to see it in a different fashion. And then augmenting information, allowing other systems or, you know, mobile devices, or what I like to refer to as alternate devices, because it's not just mobile, it's tablets. Pretty soon it's going to be smartwatches. And then what I like to refer to as a digital twin or a schematic. And when I refer to those types of tools, that's more of a live schematic. So pulling in live information, a digital twin where it's actually not just a stick, but has real information being associated to it. So just to give you an understanding of simply what a digital twin is, it's just, you know, a virtual model of a process product. And it's used to associate information to gather data in real time that's being collected somewhere, because in a database, you give it a reference, and a reference is a unique ID. Once everything gets tagged to a digital asset, and I know everybody's thinking augmented reality, virtual reality, the 3D model. It doesn't. It can be simple. It can be a schematic, but it has a unique ID, and that unique ID can be split up. And whether it's 1,000 lines with 1,000 unique IDs or one line with 1,000 unique IDs, that information is extremely valuable, and it can be broken down and saved and transparent digitally. So a digital twin is a representation. It allows you to store, table, and associate relatable information. That's huge. And this was one of the biggest things that I still see value from, is the visual association of columns or rows or just general data, and just showing you a different view, you know, of a sub-segmentation or you know, nodal breakdown in a junction that has 5, 6, 10 components to one unique ID. It really allows you to break it down. It could be a jointed pipe, it could be a collar on a drill stem, it could just be the pump or the valve, or however you define that criteria for your organization. It's up to you to define that. And a lot of people go, well, are there standard processes for defining that threshold? Yes, but we're learning that every time we think it's the next, there's another one. We want to go down to a jointed pipe, or we just want to look every inch. Why can't you calculate the same thing down every inch of a pipe? We have the ability, we have the technology, utilize it to share that. And then information can be shared, stored, displayed. And this is all just being associated back. So whether it's, you know, production or a profile, you know, these lines don't have to be 10 kilometers long. It can be an inch in the digital twin. But when you dive into it, that digital twin is just reiterating calculations as you go. And just so everybody knows, a digital twin doesn't just have to be a stick. It has to relate to real life too, and the geospatial environment. And this is where I find the most value for myself, and where I'm learning a lot of our industry is how do we transpose this information into the real world? Subsegmentation, showing each joint, referencing other information to the real life world just allows you to understand whether it's a risk on a pipeline, or where my drilling rig is and how it relates to my operations. Just what it looks like with imagery, and whether you use public data or you have your own proprietary, maybe you have some recently released emissions or satellite imagery that you want to overlay. It's a layer in another system that, if it talks, centralizing it into a common platform allows. And as you can see in this one, there's actually some geohazard information brought in that is related to risk in pipelines and that information. And it's huge, because not only do they see where the inline is backed, where they have a risk on a pipeline or an entire system, but just visually seeing where these things are. I'm not going to touch on some analytics and statistics and dashboards, because that's a whole different realm, but that's just another way of bringing transparency and clarity and reporting in a repeatable fashion. And that's what it's all about. One of the things I did want to touch on is diving into things. So you see a very general overview, but when you create a digital twin, you can dive right into things and onto a single line. You can look at information that was pulled and you can overlay it. If you want, you can even look at, you know, multiple years of information and trend it. And in this small case right here, one of the things that I'm most excited about and where I see technology coming from is that pink little dot. That's actually an inspection, a validation, a dig. And then you can get to the point where you can actually get, you know, up in the left-hand corner, there's an external defect on a mill. You can actually see what these things look like, and saving that information to that geospatial location, or allowing your linear assets to be represented in a fashion where every joint is shown here. You can look at each joint or look at the system. So the reporting, the ease of transparency to make decisions quicker is there. And it just happens to be nice that it shows it by a river, because nobody wants anything bad to happen here. When it's the worst place on this line, of course it's going to get elevated. You can support decisions, and that's what technology is there. It's there to support you. So yeah, whether it's a dent on the X side or internal corrosion, you can look at it in different ways. So it's one thing I wanted to share with everybody is think of the problem you're trying to solve, but don't think of the solution in how you actually see it. Because would I have ever thought a 3D diagram 5 years ago would be possible? No. But using laser scanning and infrared, we're finding that getting this visualization is easy. Relating it back to that and that specific spot, that location is actually subgrade GPS tagged and tagged to that pipe. So we're actually using a sub GPS grade, not a report number stored on a file drive. That was cool, because they want to go look at that. That report's there on that line. They can see it. They can pull up 5, 10 years of history, or just the last years. And it's showing exactly where it is. And that's what excites me. And we're just getting to that point because technology is enabling us to do it. that sub GPS grade, actually capturing it with a mobile device, tagging it against that pipeline and that linear asset and that report, it's all still numbered and managed the same. It's just enabling it to speak and collaborate to give someone else a higher value. Once all of that is put together, the visualization is great, but what more can it do? You know, it can show you information about pipelines. It can show you information about facilities. It can show you information about where you want to go and what you want to do. It can even take your pipeline and show you all the different portions and maybe water bodies that cross it or things that are there. But the one thing I always like to point out is it still has to do what we're used to doing and give us that information in a tool that we're all confident we can utilize, and it's Excel or maybe it's in some other type of language that you can utilize it. Things can be consumed, but they also have to be pushed out, because that's where the value comes. You can consume, add value, push back out. A lot of companies want to centralize this in their own data lakes. And to get to that, you have to be able to not only consume, but push. And the APIs and be making information easy to access is a big component of this. So, you know, going through and looking at a line to see where it is, calculating, like in this case, every 25 meters down the line, maybe it's every 20 inches. The information's there. It's just what fashion does your organization want to see it in? And that's where the configuration part comes in. There's customization, which is new, and then configuration, which is modify. Two totally separate things, and definitely could be discussed in further. I won't talk too much about that. So just to kind of end off on that and touch on the final thing about Kaizen and where I see things going is there's going to be a huge improvement in where the industry is going because of the technology. And it could be from allowing systems to input new corrosion calculations, or monitoring and doing matching on existing pits or defects to determine the growth. All of this will have to be done quicker. And yes, taking the human interaction out of it is what's most likely going to happen and will happen in time once we effectively make this process automated. But imagine the decisions you can drive by having the answer in your fingertips in minutes rather than hours or days. And that's the big thing is I use the example of, we did an inline inspection on a run, or we inspected a vessel and we just got this year's data back and we put it in. I should be able to almost instantaneously see what the growth was or not on that, to drive not only the decision on this one, but all of the other things that are related to this. Because one of the things I talk about, just like our world, we're housed in one world. Everybody's linked, whether it's the air that's around us or anything. But oil and gas and what we produce is a closed loop system, right from the reservoir all the way to our houses, or till it gets refined and transformed into some of the other type of product. So it's closed loop. Yes, we all know ESG and some of it does leak, and we're doing an amazing job to reduce that. But if it's a closed loop, everything's related. Why can't my actions here and what I identify be passed along to a group just downstream of me that might see the same thing? Or if it is a linear asset, because I love pipelines, why can't I drive the decision on my dig program in minutes or days or hours instead of years that it might take to process how things are changing? Thinking of that and how we're going forward is going to be driving our industry in a new direction. And I truly see it being the forefront. When I say we're at the tipping point, we're not at the top. We're not going to come just crashing through with all these amazing ideas, because the technology and where we are is just coming there. And it will take everybody's collaboration and working together to solve a bigger picture. And the results are there. There's tons of tools, like we see tons of mobile devices, different types of databases coming out. A lot of it even comes from other industries. So what I'm looking forward to is a lot of the questions and helping share some of the information I have, whether it be from my industry experience or Sunazone, or even putting people in touch with other peers that I work with. So I'd like to say thank you to everybody who attended today. I know it's a long weekend. It also just happens to be Chinese New Year's, so Year of the Ox. I hope it warms up outside, and thanks everybody for being, and I hope everybody has a great family day long weekend. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Mark. Really appreciate that. That was a great presentation, great insight of where potentially the industry is going. So, so with that, if you have questions for Mark, please enter them into the Q&A panel, or if you're on YouTube Live, enter them in the chat and I'll try and ask them on there. So I guess to get started here, so, I mean, obviously big data and AI are, big buzzwords that we're talking about and that you're talking about, and we've all heard them around and they look like they could provide value. So, but with this, I mean, you touched on this a little bit, but going forward, do you think that this is going to be the leading trend and evolution in the oil and gas industry?
I do. And it's probably also going to be the most challenging one because we have so much to learn about it. There's so much information coming and it's coming so fast. The tools that we're using out in the field are actually giving us more information than we know what to do with. And that's our biggest problem. It's a lot of people's issues, not just in oil and gas. And I see finding a way to harness that power of that information as being the challenge, but linking it, standardizing it, and finding the purpose for the solution that you're trying to solve will definitely allow you to do it. And tying this to other information, not just the asset. So the biggest thing is that association, that one point that's being monitored. How does it link to what it's directly associated to? What's upstream and downstream in the different processes? And that will be the changing point, is when we're able to not just put it in a spot and see where it is, but create that digital link between what it's affecting and other things that affect it. And the example I give is whether it's CP or corrosion monitoring probes or sealants, monitoring the fluid, the pressures, the temperature from every upstream source that it's coming from, and then calculating theoretical calculations downstream instantaneously every time that changes. That is the working of big data and machine learning and that side. And I do see it being that leading edge of where we're going for sure.
Yeah, and basically the next evolution of what we need to do to be more efficient at what we're doing, right?
Yeah, definitely. If it's all about efficiency, but being overwhelmed sometimes, you look at it and you kind of go, wow, it's going, but what value is this extra data providing me? We have some where we are getting daily data, hourly data, and I've been asked, do you want it every 5 minutes? And I'm like, well, I don't think the client knows what to do with it every 5 minutes. So, understanding that we're getting more, but only utilizing it for its purpose. And then like the Kaizen thing is push it off to the side. You don't get rid of it, but you use what you need to drive that answer that you want. And when you come back, maybe that answer needs to be repeated in a more timely fashion with more frequent data. That's that whole continuous improvement cycle.
So that ties into one of the other questions here from the audience. So why Kaizen? Why not something else?
That is a good question. It can be whatever you want. Honestly, it's continuous improvement. It's a different language. It's with technology. I like that it takes in all people within an organization. That's the big thing to me is we see so many people doing amazing things for one group or one siloed portion of the company. Bringing everybody together and bringing that awareness, taking that step back and looking at the bigger picture of the problem before you hone in to solve that one issue. I think we all get stuck in solving that problem for ourselves and not understanding what that is. That's the one part. And whether it's, Kaizen or continuous improvement or some other phrase that you use, this is the part of this phrase that just goes with me. And it's those small wins for the bigger picture.
Fair enough. Well, thanks for that. So, I mean, you talk a lot about collecting big data, AI, migrating forward, this being the big evolution. In your mind, what kind of skills do you think engineers and technologists are going to need as we evolve into this new era?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question, Brett. And you're starting to see it, and it's already come, is a lot of engineers and just coming out of university and colleges, and even just out of high school, the younger generations are already getting this. They're understanding what programming is and development is, but you don't need to do it, right? That's the big thing. You can understand it and comprehend it. That's one skill set I wish I had. So I could work with my clients and my developers to maybe solve their issues quicker, identify problems, or work to bridge that gap better. That's a huge thing for engineers, technologists, or people in the industry going forward is don't be scared. You know, did I think having an iPhone was going to be great? Not when I first got it. Now I look at my phone and I go, oh, it categorized all the pictures I took by location and where I was in the world when I took it. That's awesome. Or facial recognition. You know, I can see that my youngest daughter has 7 different facial recognitions as she grew and aged, but I can tell at the exact age that she has remained consistent and the same, and this is her. That's amazing. Would I have thought that would have come from using this? No. Did I love my flip phone? Yes. Did I not like hitting A or 111 to get to C? Realizing that it's just accepting it, knowing that it's there to help us, but also not everything is. And that's one of the things I'll say is not all technology is there for a grander purpose, but that's where understanding everybody's need and purpose and taking it into consideration, it's a good thing. Ask questions. That's the best thing you can do. Continue to be inquisitive, and for engineers, technologists, or even people in the field, that's the biggest thing is just helping share the knowledge. And that's what I find technology is doing more. It's helping us share the information, giving better platforms for people to understand. You probably find it, Brett, that some of your systems and being able to visualize where your operations are is huge. Being able to share with them why a pipeline is high risk or what pumps are in certain areas just links everybody together to move you forward together, which if you're moving forward together with 2 people is a lot better than by yourself. You'll accomplish more, right?
No, fair enough. I remember, 10 years ago or so, one of the hot skills out there was those people who could be able to type really efficiently using those 1 to 9 number pads. And man, like you'd have some friends out there who would just go like crazy as they're typing on there and write full things. And, I would avoid it like I could possibly, but it would take forever to write something. And yeah, that skill seemed to kind of have fallen off the wayside, not important anymore, but that was pretty funny during that time. So I'm curious, what kind of benefits do you think the cloud's going to bring then to managing all this big data and the analytics that go alongside with it?
Always benefits to it. One is the big benefit of cost savings. It might be expensive to save it, but it's not in your office, and it's no different than owning equipment versus renting it. You have to pay the maintenance. You have to make sure that people are on board and trained to do it. The grand picture of that is cloud will enable scalability. Fortunately, I've just started learning about this over the past couple of years as we're looking at different environments. There's more environments coming up, Azure, there's Google, there's so many different, even IBM has one coming up. I think it's even in Airdrie. Our system and these SAN environments are easily scalable environments so that you're not paying to have a bunch of empty space. You pay for what you need. And what we're finding is the IT and the systems analysts are able to actually support and scale. So when that cloud system is being used, it's on, but when it's not, it's off. So you're not paying, you only pay for when it's on, right? And that's the big thing is managing that. And I think that's going to be one of the biggest things that will help us. One of the other things is security is being improved ever readily on that. I know everybody used to love having, in-house servers. We migrated all of our clients into cloud spaces, and that was a huge achievement. Our last one was our oldest client, and we realized the cost for us to help them maintain it and for them to support it overdid the cost of the organization themselves. So when it came to that point in cloud computing and supporting industry, I think it's a great benefit. You don't have a server inside of your building. Yes, it's somewhere else, but hopefully you look at your contracts and what you have in place to make sure that, the protection, the security, the scalability, the size and how it's used is there for you to scale or utilize. I think the biggest part in that is connecting, and that's that top of that pyramid that I talked about, the collaboration. If you can't bring everything into one place to get that integration and that aggregated system together, it's a lot easier because I don't want to say our world is shrinking, it's actually growing. I've talked to more people during this pandemic across the world, instead of driving to go have a coffee with a guy for a half hour, he's like, I'm free right now. We jump on a 5-minute Zoom call. Our world is actually shrinking because technology is enabling us to do it. It's also allowing us to collaborate, and the cloud is allowing us to collaborate and use expertise elsewhere, but still have access. And one example I have is we've done some offshore development on some applications that we're building, and by offshore, they're not in Canada, but we are working on the same database at the same time in 2 separate companies with competent people that we've chosen to work with, just because we don't have those resources. And that's one of the big things is we're developer deprived. They're a limited resource. I'm looking forward to other tech companies moving into Calgary, because hopefully they'll bring more people with them into the area, because I love supporting local. But right now it's the law of supply and demand. You know, students are coming up and they're getting gobbled up, and we can't get the experienced people. So just like, you know, we're seeing with oil and gas experienced people moving out and retiring and going on, and the one coming in is no different for developers. Although I'm hoping this change in education will bring more people in than the technology, and we're seeing it. There's more people with very basic and junior skills coming in. We just need to augment them with the people that are soon going out with the understanding of how to do this, because the experience, like everything we do, experience is a large sum of your knowledge, and we have to make sure to share that. So.
No, I think that's a very good summary. Definitely lots of potential with that. So it's a good segue for our next question here. So thinking more about the digital twin. I mean, we in the industry have heard this term a lot. You brought it up here today. You showed some examples on that. It seems like super pie in the sky. Can you give us some insight of, you know, like how many other vendors and workers out there have you had experience that have been building upon this? Do you see lots of more knowledge provided to developing this digital twin out there?
Yeah, it's new. I didn't realize that Senazon was already on that road path when I was here, until I comprehended the understanding of we're just associating information to a schematic, a live digital twin, and we've added and added and added and added to it information to further support it or build on it. Industry is going there. You might have seen an article that came out that in offshore Halifax, there's a big initiative and funding going into that. It comes from the 3D visualization. It comes from that's actually replicating it. But I think it's already there. There are companies and organizations going down that path. Do I know of them? Not offhand. I know there's a few that are creating in Calgary the augmented and virtual reality, and that digital twin is being formed. We already do it when we create PNIDs and flow schematics and diagrams through our different systems. We're creating that digital twin, but we're not utilizing it in the power of adding more information, or it's not in a system where we can add to it. It's just a diagram, right? That's the part of what a digital twin is being able to associate and grow on that and tabling it. The drawing is great, but if you can take that and then augment it with more information, that's the part of, it's just a visual. Now you're giving unique IDs or aspects to that you can grow off of. So I hope that helps. I'm still learning about it. It's new to me, and I actually didn't realize that we had started down that path many years ago with our tool. And I'm definitely learning a lot more, but virtual reality, augmented reality, which I didn't realize were 2 totally separate things. It's a trend, and it's going to be changing from the design phase right down to the management as you see ongoing operations. Maybe we won't walk down a pipeline right away because we've actually flown it with a drone and you can review it a day after and see your pipe underground while you're doing it.
No, that's interesting. That's almost like thinking that there's different levels of what the digital twin can be. Something potentially simple like a drawing, for instance, on a document, to potentially a whole virtualization world where maybe you throw on the VR unit and you could walk along your pipeline. Or I mean, I remember I've seen before, some people can take images of like your facilities and scan by getting drones to capture lasers around, and then you could potentially hop in a VR image of that and see your facility from that. So that's an interesting way of putting what digital twin is. You don't have to have that VR experience. There can be something, different levels of that before you get to there. So moving on, there's a couple questions here that I have more related to back to kind of your thoughts of the skills required to moving on. So I know like that lots of experienced engineers, you know, they're going to have to adapt. And, you know, what do you think in your mind, how do you think engineers can adapt to that? Do you think, for example, potentially data science courses might fit in an engineer's tool belt to be able to, something to pick up, to learn, to be ready for this next evolution in the work that we're doing?
I guess it all depends on your situation and what you want to do. Data science is great, but technology is created, and there's a term used for the UI, that's the user interface. We build technology with people who already know how to solve the answer that they're trying to achieve. So there's going to be a need for the engineers to still do what they're doing. We just are with maybe doing more, building more facilities, managing more things, staying on top of things quicker. You're just going to be using technology and ensuring that it's functioning properly and communicating it for your specific need while still sharing that with the rest of the organization. Do I see additional courses or things like data analysis helping? Yes, to help support the building, you know, analyzing existing data and make sure you have the right information that is going to be used for an input, or taking an output and analyzing it to help for other purposes, because there will be so much information. Yeah, it is, but there's still a need, and that need will be suited to everybody's what they're doing, and everybody and what they do is unique. You may have the exact same educational background as myself, Brett, but my experience and my exposure is what makes me different. And for me, I will never become a developer. I know some amazing people I can work with that can communicate it. I just actually hired an amazing data scientist because we're doing some stuff that requires that skill set. And we're all working together to solve one big picture. The developers are helping us build it. My data scientists are helping me parcel and segregate this information for use for the developer. Because if I don't tell them 1 + 1 = 2, they can't program that. They can't take 1 and 1 and make it 3. They need that exact output and how to create it. And you need to provide them that information in a form where they can build it into an application and compartmentalize it. So just being open to it and going with where your career and the tools that are there and what interests you is the biggest thing. If data science interests you, go for it. If you love looking at massive amounts of data and you're good at it already, courses will just improve that. If you aren't good at it, like myself, and your eyes start getting fuzzy really quick, you know what? I'll stick to what I'm good at. So it's a conscious decision of understanding who you are, and that's Kaizen, where you're at and where those needs are, but also that specific problem. People are always going to be required in the bigger picture of things, and everybody's needs and abilities will support the grander picture. And that's why moving forward together by everyone is such a key part. Everyone needs to know their place and how they can support the grander picture.
No, that's really fair. It reminds me of some of my experiences working with data scientists before. They definitely need the guidance, but man, the power that they can do to summarize large sets of data can be outstanding. So you do wonder if maybe some of them, maybe not that level of skill, but at least a good common understanding might help. Okay, so we have time just for one last question here. Can you provide an example where you used machine learning and you found that it actually ended up saving a ton of effort instead of being more of a headache than it was worth?
Yes, I won't go into too much in depth with it because it's something we're currently working on and we have been working on for a while, but
you're not going to spoil the secrets?
No, I'll talk about it because honestly, it's probably one of my biggest passions is run-to-run pit management and matching. You know, it's a lot of information. It's a lot of correction of information. People use a lot of the same vendor to provide it because they can compare theirs to the next one. But with industry and competition and everything and how it moves forward, you have to also be able to interpret it yourself. And what we found is we've started to standardize the process in a fashion where it can be relatable. we're not doing it because we aren't the specialists, but that's where you partner and collaborate. And I'm happy to say we're working with the University of Calgary and a professor and a PhD student there, as well as my tax. So that excites me, and we're doing it, and we're showing amazing numbers in how you can repeat it from current industry standards. And I hope that we're not the only ones pushing that level, but when you can take a 200-mile long run that's been done twice and update it, great, you just compared 2 runs. But what if there was a correction in that second one and you actually are doing 3 runs because they recorrected all that data because there was some anomaly or cutout, so everything got shifted? Well, then you got to run it again. You're doing machine learning. If you treat that process and already understand how you did that matching and walk through that step by step by step, even just, oh, they ran it one direction one way and the other direction the other way, well, how do you solve that problem, right? That's one thing you have to take in mind. And we're finding it extremely efficient, but going through the process once has been a long time. The output of this and taking every individual step along the way was time consuming and repetitive, but you have to look at every variable. And that's where the machine learning will go through every variable and it will break. And you'll look at how it broke and you'll go back and see why and try to identify the problem to put in the solution. And that's the amazing part, is the speed and quickness of repeating this to give you information to drive action will mean that we can recalculate or recalibrate our current plan faster, which means our exact plan that we had from a year ago will change very quickly. And we can almost do things more efficiently, because we know the one thing that is common is change. Everything's going to change. And that's the most consistent thing, is it's always going to change. So we just have to adapt to that and make sure that we're doing it faster, quicker, but at high levels of confidence. So it's not bad decisions made with bad information, right?
Fair enough. No, I appreciate that. That's some great insight. That's a good example on that. I definitely do see some use potentially with machine learning, but still it seems very pie in the sky. So that's a great example of how it can potentially impact a project. And I haven't found too much success yet. So, but we'll see. It's worth continuing trying as the years go by on this. Thanks, Mark. That was, unfortunately, we're all out of time here for questions. Thanks, Mark. I really appreciate you joining us today. It was an absolutely fantastic presentation, and I really appreciate your good questions with that. So upcoming on our webinar series, we're going to have Michael Zhao from Gibson Energy come join us in about 3 weeks' time. So please follow us on our LinkedIn page and be sure to check out our website for when those registration goes live. And if you yourself are also interested in sharing your research or experience, or potentially an interesting case study as well with me on this platform, please email me at program@nacecalgary.ca. And I'll be sure to book you in our program, and you can come join us. So thanks everybody again for joining us today. Please be safe out there and stay warm. Thank you everybody, and goodbye.